And I said, fine, but I'm not taking the blankets off until you say action. We're like, okay. God, I was a nightmare. Maybe that's why they sent me home. She came up to me. It was one of our producers, Jen, or sorry, they came up to me and they said, can you say this? And I went to them and I was just like, you're going to make me sound stupid, aren't you? You're going to make me look dumb on this show. That's what you're trying to do right now. And they were like, no, I promise that's what we're going to do. And I went, no, that's what you're doing. You're trying to make me look stupid. I'll say it, but I just want to let you know that that's how I feel. Priyanka was already out of drag. I was still in drag. She went, Juice. And I was like, Pre. And then we kissed, like we shared like a little peck and then we just moved on. And then the whole next day when we were both in our confessionals, they were like, so you and Priyanka kissed. Can you tell us more about that? And I was like, you don't kiss your friends? Is that not a normal thing? Like I was confused. And then even Priyanka was just like, did they ask you about us kissing? And I was like, yeah, that was weird, right? And she was like, yeah, I think they were trying to make us look like we had a showmance. And I was like, ew.
Hello everyone, and welcome back for some more freshly brewed drag tea. Today I have with me a stunning Canadian queen who wowed us with her beauty and charm when she competed on season 1 of Canada's Drag Race. I'm super excited for you all to get to know her better and learn more about her amazing journey in drag. We'll of course be talking all things Drag Race, and I'll be asking some of the great questions you all sent in. Please join me in welcoming the always amazing Juice Boxx!
Hi.
Hi!
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I've had a nice day. I've just been doing chores, so easy.
That sounds fun. I love the ears. They're very good.
Thanks. My little cat ears. I've got my little razor cat ears.
It looks very Twitch.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, this is like my whole Twitch setup. So sometimes I wish I didn't have such like large like what's it called? Just obnoxious headphones. But I feel like it just like if I'm doing anything like this, I'm just like, no, it makes sense. So I'll just keep them on.
I don't know much about Twitch. I barely know anything. I just know that a lot of them wear the ears and it's like a thing. So
yeah, I feel like a lot of the like girls do it and it's like really cutesy. And a lot of the guys wear these just like obnoxious, like black with like purple lights, and it's so like butch and video gamey. And I'm just like, just have some fun. Wear a pink headphone. My God.
Well, they look great. So I think it fits with your personality and everything. And so obviously super excited to speak to you. I know people were very excited to hear from you. And I think obviously, we were all sad we didn't get to see much of you on Canada's Drag Race. So I was just wondering if you could sort of tell us a bit about how you got involved in drag, maybe how your name came about and things like that.
I got into drag because I was partying a lot and I had really low self-confidence, and I saw all the queens who were always getting in for free, and they were getting free drinks and they were super confident and everybody wanted to talk to them. So I was just like, I could do that. I could be that person. And I was a makeup artist and I was like so cocky. So I was just like, oh, that'll be so easy for me to do. I still looked like an absolute dog for the first like 2 years, but in my mind, I looked incredible. But yeah, I think I got into it for sort of the wrong reasons. Like when I got into drag, I got into it not to perform, but just to look pretty, just to look hot at parties, just to get in for free like that. I was using it like that. And it wasn't until a few years later that I really fell in love with it and fell in love with what I could do and how I could, take this art and kind of create something better with it. And my name is this 18 plus, this interview?
I'll bleep stuff out. It's fine.
Oh, okay. My name was, me and my friend were sitting on his couch watching TV, and we were trying to figure out a drag name. And we were watching Will and Grace, and Karen Walker picked up 2 boxes of wine and said, I brought juice boxes. And we looked up what juice box means in Urban Dictionary, and it means full of. And we thought that was just really funny. So we were like, yeah, that's a good drag name. And then now I'm just too deep in to change it. So I'm just like, nah, that's just my name.
Okay, wow. I've never heard of that. I thought it just meant a box of actual like juice, like fruit juice.
No, it means the other thing.
Okay. Well, that's it. I mean, it's an interesting name, but that's certainly an interesting name. But it sounds like it could be either. So I guess it works. It can be adult.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think with my persona and like how I go about things, especially in my performances or the way that I hold myself at shows, is I am a very much more of kind of like a very sexy, sensual sort of performer. So for me, I think it makes sense for my whole brand. But you know,
Yeah, well, so speaking of that, obviously on the show, you one of the things like you said in your entrance was that you are sort of a very like sensual person, and that's sort of quite a big part of your personality. And you said, I just want everyone to think that I'm hot. Is that
yeah.
is that something that's like quite important to you? Like what how did that sort of develop?
I think through like years of self-loathing, and especially like being, in the gay community, there's so much pressure to look a certain way and to act a certain way and to so you're accepted and so people want to be around you. And it's not like I'm dating or anything. I've been with my husband for 18 years, so it's not like I'm like looking for the approval of men that I want to be with, but it's just like I think it's just looking for the approval of your community, and I think that's where it kind of stems from. um because like I wanted to feel confident in who I was, and that's why I got into drag, so Juice could feel confident. But then once I felt confident in my drag, then I had to kind of go back and be like, okay, now I need to make like myself, like my real everyday person, confident, so let's work on that.
I mean, no, it's a great name, and I think also you did kind of show that like your entrance look was really stunning, and you kind of gave off that vibe. So I think that works. It doesn't matter whether you're single or not. It's just how you feel, and if that makes you feel good, then why not?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah. So no, I think it was great, and like speaking of obviously your entrance look, I think my audience probably will best know you from season 1 of Canada's Drag Race. So I was just wondering if you could talk a bit about how did you get involved in Drag Race? Did you always want to go on when a Canadian version became available? Did you ever think there would be a Canadian version?
I mean, when it came about, it was funny, like in Canada, when the announcement came that it was coming to town, you could tell like it was almost like a wave went over all of Toronto, or like, and Canada, like everyone was just like on edge. Like you could tell it kind of changed the game, because it used to be we didn't care because there wasn't a way for us to get on the American season. There was no way one of us could get on unless we were Brooklyn Heights and we won Miss Continental. We got an American citizenship. We auditioned. Like there was no way any of us could have had this opportunity. So a lot of us were just like, whatever. We didn't care. We just went about our things and went about our art and got to open for American Ru Girls, and it was great and fun. But then once we actually got the opportunity that it was going to be coming here, we were like, okay, well, you have to audition. Like no matter what, everybody was just like, you have to audition, get on or not, you have to audition just to take the chance. And I never thought I was going to get on. I was the girl that I was always kind of like a second thought. I was always the girl that was just, I was on the roster, but no one really cared. Or I was on the roster and I wasn't the girl that everybody was waiting for. I opened a lot. Like I was in a thing called the Spice Queens with Priyanka. We were a Spice Girls cover group. They always had me open the solo parts. I was always the girl who could change the fastest. So they just had me open. They kind of always gave me like the end of the stick always, and that was just kind of who I was in the city. And then I auditioned fully thinking I wouldn't get on, and then I kept making it through and I kept making it through and I kept making it through. And I felt like even people who I was talking to about making it through, they were almost surprised. They were like, oh, really? And I was just like, yeah, I can't believe it. And people around me who I thought would have gotten on weren't getting calls and weren't getting onto the video and weren't getting these things. And then I made it on, and I was just like, holy, I thought I was being pranked until I walked on. Like I didn't think it was real. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I'm glad that you got on, but obviously it's a shame that you felt like, or other people made you feel like you weren't going to get on, because you on the show, you did, regardless of whether you went home first, you did show that you are like great. You had really great fashion. You came across really well on the show. And I think I can see why they brought you on, because I think you had this like really like warm persona, and you like, and your looks that you did show were like the entrance of everything actually did look really good. And I think you interacted with the girls really well, and you had a really good storyline. And one of the parts of it which I was going to touch on was obviously you talked about being sober and your sobriety journey.
I've been sober for about 2 years now.
It felt good to have a conversation with Bo about sobriety. Being in the industry that we're in, there's a lot of people that come to the show just to see how drunk you're gonna get.
How did that kind of come about? Because I think on the show you said that at the time of filming you had been sober for 2 years.
Yes.
How did that kind of come about in the, obviously drag world is a lot to do with alcohol and partying and stuff. So how did that kind of all work?
Well, I'm 5 years now, so that's very exciting. And then just gives you kind of an idea of how long ago we shot. Wild. But I remember when I first got into drag, the whole reason I got in was again to party, feel popular, like all those things. And what comes with that is alcohol. And I was surrounded by partiers. I was surrounded by like, village rats, village socialites. So a lot of my social life was around drinking. I had drinking buddies. I was also around people who did a lot of drugs. I was around people who did a lot of partying, a lot of after partying. And I never did drugs. It was always a little too scary for me. That was the part where I was just like, I don't know if I want to take that next step. But I feel like if I kept drinking, I might have taken that next step. I might have kind of went into that world. But I think for me, a lot of it was the people I was surrounded with. Because I remember there was at one point, it was about a year before I went fully sober, there was this part of me that was just like, you know what, I'm going to slow down. I'm really going to slow down on the drinking because I was seeing the way that alcohol was affecting the lives of those around me. And I was like, I don't want to be that. Like, that's gross. Like, I don't want to be that person. So I was slowing down. I was only drinking sometimes, but that meant when I did drink, I got wrecked, and I felt like the people that I was friends with were using that to their advantage, where they would be like, oh, Juice is drinking tonight, so let's get her wasted. Let's see what she does. Let's see what she says, and I was just like, that's not a friend, and that's not someone who you want around, and that's not someone who you want to be influencing you, and that's not someone who you want to be kind of with you on your journey. So I think there was a one point I was on my honeymoon and I had a drink and I kind of just was like, I don't want this. This doesn't taste good. This isn't making me feel happy. I want to feel happy. And I think I'm done. And I just kind of decided to stop drinking from there. And it was a hard journey. There was definitely people who didn't support it. There was definitely people who questioned it. But I feel like nowadays it's becoming more and more normalized with entertainers to not drink. And I like to feel like I've had a nice little sprinkle of that because I've been so very vocal about it being so inclusive to sober people, especially sober entertainers at shows. I feel like that's a very big part of my platform, is that you don't have to drink to have fun, and that a lot of places need to be inclusive of those people because we hold a big chunk of the queer community still.
No, it's a great message. And I think, like you said, there are more and more people, especially in terms of even just like Drag Race, a lot of people have talked about sobriety, whether it's alcohol or other substances. And I think your journey was really interesting. And I think obviously because it was the first season, we'd never had someone on Canada's Drag Race talk about that. And even in Drag Race before, there hadn't been as much talk about that. So I thought it was really inspiring when you were talking about it. And obviously, congratulations on 5 years.
Thank you.
It just shows you how long ago it was that, like you said, that you did film it, because you were 2 years at the time. So that's 3 years ago.
Wild. Insane.
Yeah, because on the show, one of the other elements of that, which I thought was really interesting and also obviously kind of sad, was you said that people stopped coming to your shows because of you becoming sober.
Did people stop coming to your shows when you sobered up?
Well, people don't go to my shows in the first place.
People stopped coming to mine.
Really?
So yeah, and someone actually in the questions for you asked, like, how has that affected your career? Like, did you see a decline once you went sober?
I mean, it's funny because it helps your career, but at the time you're like, oh, this sucks. The people that I would normally see aren't there. They're not coming to me anymore. But the only reason they were coming to you before was to give you a shot. They weren't there to give you money. They weren't there to tip you. They weren't there to support you and cheer you on. They were there to give you drinks. They were there to drink with you. I wasn't getting asked to go to the bar anymore. I was told that when I was in the dressing room, I was boring. They were like, Juice is boring now. She's not fun. She just sits in the dressing room quiet. And it's just like, you're, especially for someone who's recently sober, you're maneuvering this world that you're not familiar with because you were in it so comfortably incapacitated by this alcohol, or drugs, depending on whatever your vice is. So then when you go back into that space, especially like it's 2 a.m, you're tired, you're trying to kind of like feel out like how you can maneuver with these people, how you can speak to these people, because when you're sober, and especially recently sober, and you're surrounded by drunk people who are very loud and very normalized in how excessive drinking is, it's hard, and it's hard to kind of feel comfortable, and it's hard to sort of speak to them and speak to people around you. So I felt like for those comments to be made about me, they were really hurtful, but at the time it hurts. But then also on the flip side, I was getting more bookings because people saw me as more responsible. I was showing up on time. I wasn't showing up because a lot of the times I was pre-drinking with people. And when you're pre-drinking with drag queens, everything takes longer. So they were showing up late to things. They were showing up drunk to things. And I was in that group of people. I was in that kind of surrounded by those people and showing up, and people kind of gave me this reputation, and I slowly, as my sobriety went along, that reputation started to fade away, and a reputation of me showing up on time, being incredibly professional, giving a good performance, not being rude on the microphone, not saying things on the microphone, not saying stupid things on the microphone, not saying stupid things after the show, so I feel like at the time it does suck, but it does greatly help your journey. And so I would have never gotten on Drag Race if I kept drinking at all. I don't even know if I would still be doing drag. I don't even know if I would have, like, I bought a house. I live with my husband and my dog, and we're doing renovations. Like, I wouldn't have any of this if I kept drinking,
Yeah, that's a really inspiring story. So I think it's very interesting, because I guess even if you're not a drag queen, even if you're just someone who likes going out and drinking, it is like can be a really big problem, especially in the entertainment industry where it is so connected. So I thought you talking about it was like really important, and it was a really interesting storyline, and I'm glad that you got to go on Drag Race to talk about that on such a big platform.
Thank you.
Obviously, speaking of Drag Race, so yeah, obviously you got on, which is great. So when you what did it feel like then walking in on that first day, and then you do your little entrance and everything, and then you see the other girls? What does that feel like in that moment?
Cold. It was very cold on it was freezing. No, it was fun. I mean, it's fun. It's weird, right? Because you're not just walking into like a room with people, you're on a TV production. So there's a lot happening behind the scenes. Like, you're waking up at 4 a.m. to get ready. They're carting you to a room, but they're making sure no one else is crossing at the time, because you're not allowed to see each other. You have to have headphones in so you can't hear anybody in the other rooms. You're not allowed to talk. Going to the bathroom was a really big deal. Like, some girls didn't go to the bathroom until like 5 o'clock that evening, and they were tucked all day. Like, it was wild. Like, it was the first season. They were trying to work out some kinks, but it was weird. It was cool and it was fun, but it's not like what you watch on TV. Once you're there, you definitely see, like, you're like, oh, I'm on a TV set. There's directors, there's producers, there's cameras, there's a lot of moving parts. But it is fun. It is cool. I worked on film sets for years. So like, for me, it wasn't an uncomfortable atmosphere. It was just different to be on the other side of the camera.
Yeah, that must be weird to sort of peek behind the curtain and sort of see. I mean, obviously, like you said, you already kind of knew that because you'd worked on production sets before.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess to be a fan of the show and then to go on, it must be quite weird to think that you are on the show now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was weird. And I mean, they treat you like gold, because I went from working as a makeup artist on set, where they treat you like hot garbage, to when you are talent on a set, and they'll rub your feet if you feel like your foot's gonna hurt that day. They'll be like, I've got you. Do you want anything? Do you need anything? And it was just like, great, holy they treat you so good. Except once they actually throw you on set, then it's just like, oh, it's all you now, babe. That's why when I got stuck, that's why I said help, because I thought they were going to come and help me, because they were doing everything for me that day.
I'm stuck. Help.
So I thought they would come on and take me out, but that's when I realized, I was like, oh no, now it's all me. Now I'm all alone. Okay.
No, that's actually an interesting point. And what I was going to ask about was, yeah, because obviously in your entrance, you did like your bracelet, I think it was, got stuck on your tights.
Yeah.
Um, when that happened, did you kind of think, oh, they're going to use this in the edit, or did you think they'll let you redo it and do it again?
I knew they were going to use it in the edit when I got eliminated. That's when I knew they were going to use it in the edit, because they prompted me to say, and I don't know if it aired because I've only watched my episode like once, but they prompted me to say, I got stuck, I tripped in the mini challenge, and I danced my ass off, and something like that.
I came, I saw, I got stuck on my outfit, I fell in the mini challenge, and then I danced my ass off. There you go, Canada.
So when they said that, I was like, oh, I know the story they're trying to do. They're going to make me look like the kind of silly bimbo character that gets put out first. But I'm happy with what they did. They didn't make me look just stupid the whole episode, but I did look a little like onesie clumsy.
That was, yeah, I rewatched the episode actually earlier to sort of like refresh my memory, because I haven't watched season 1 in a while. But yeah, you kind of said that at the end. You said you kind of almost like did a summary of what had happened in the episode. Like, I came in, got stuck, tripped, and then got danced and then got eliminated.
Yeah, they told me to say that.
That's interesting to know then. So I guess, yeah, like you said, it shows you how produced the show is, that they're really how are we going to explain this to an audience? We want the person themselves to tell us.
Yeah, she came up to me. It was one of our producers, Jen, or sorry, they came up to me and they said, can you say this? And I went to them and I was just like, you're going to make me sound stupid, aren't you? You're going to make me look dumb on this show. That's what you're trying to do right now. And they were like, no, I promise that's what we're going to do. And I went, no, that's what you're doing. You're trying to make me look stupid. I'll say it, but I just want to let you know that that's how I feel. And they were like, okay. So I think that's why they didn't make me look as stupid. They gave me a little bit more of an arc, because I was just like, I am leaving here thinking you guys are making me look like an absolute moron. But they didn't. So that was nice.
No, you didn't. You didn't come across as a moron, to me at least. Like you said, what you said earlier, like the kind of slightly ditzy, not bimbo, but just like ditzy kind of like, and that's not a bad thing. Like, I thought that was actually quite endearing. So I actually quite liked that.
Yeah, well, that's good. It did its job.
And so when you did see the rest, obviously you walk in, get stuck and everything, and then everyone else comes in. Who did you know from the cast already?
Almost everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, almost everyone.
Who didn't you know then?
I did. Well, when I first walked in, I obviously knew Priyanka. I knew Alona because somebody called me and said Alona is going to be on the show. So I started following her before I got on. And she followed me back. Actually, when the cameras weren't rolling, she was just like, did we follow each other? And I went, I knew you were going to be on the show. She's like, I knew you too. So we followed each other. And I didn't know who Kiara was, but she seemed nice enough. But nobody in Toronto fell through on their NDA. We all knew each other was on. The only one we didn't know who was going to be on from Toronto was Starzy, because Starzy wasn't really working a lot. Starzy was more of a pageant girl. She had a full-time job, so she would only ever do pageants. We would only ever see her really rarely. So she wasn't one that we were talking to a bunch. So she was the only big surprise. And Boa kept it really close. Boa didn't tell anybody. So we were surprised with Boa and Starzy, but like, I knew Scarlett, I knew Tainomi, I knew Priyanka. I even heard whispers of Kyne. So
yeah, I suppose from what I've heard, I guess is the drag scene in Canada, although Canada's a massive country, I guess like Toronto is one of the biggest sort of areas where people live, and also the drag. So if you're kind of in that scene, you kind of know everyone, probably similar to like if you're in London or something like that, you all kind of know each other.
Yeah, and you don't know how to keep a secret.
Well, drag queens have big mouths, so
we do have big mouths. That's why they try to lock you down with an NDA, but we're like, yeah, whatever. But then also there's like 4 costume designers and like 2 wig stylists, right? So who's always at Leland's house, you can kind of like tell who's going to be on the show.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is like if there's only a few designers, you kind of all going to use the same people. So and so yeah, so you get on the show, you meet everyone, and your first challenge, we kind of discussed it a little bit earlier. The first mini challenge was the walking up the mountain and the photo shoot. How did that feel? Because was that the first time, I guess, was that maybe the first time you really felt like, oh yeah, I'm on Drag Race doing a challenge with all the judges watching me being blown by a fan, you know?
Like, no, because I'm annoying. Okay, so what I did, they didn't show this, but they give you very clear instructions. Like, okay, you're going to go in, you're going to step on your mark, they're going to tell you what to do, and you're going to walk up the mountain, do the thing, walk down, thank them on your mark, and leave. And I went, okay, cool. I didn't do that at all. I walked in, I walked right past my mark, right up to the judges because I wanted to say hi to them and thank them. Like I was going to be like, thank you so much. I'm really, really excited. And Brooklyn, I've known Brooklyn for years. Like I've known Brooklyn since like I started doing drag when Brooklyn was just leaving the country. I used to drive her home after her shows. We would go to dinners like after the show all the time. And like I've known Brooklyn forever. So she, I think, knew she could speak to me this way because she was like, you idiot. I started walking up and she went, Juice, nope, don't do that. Nope, nope, nope. Go to your mark. Nope, that's not what you do. And I was like, oh, whoop. Turned around, did my thing, went on the mark, went up, did my little challenge. And then after I finished the challenge, I did the exact same thing. I walked right off my mark and I walked right over to them to say thank you. And she was like, Juice, no, go back to your mark. And I was like, so for me, I just didn't even think, like, I didn't even think like, oh, I have to follow directions. I was just like, whatever. I want to say hi to people. I want to talk. I want to chat. I want to say thanks. So I don't know.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that you knew Brooklyn that well. I assumed you knew of because in the critique, I think she kind of mentioned, oh, that's very your brand. So I assumed she knew you, but I didn't know that you were that close. So how did that feel then, having her be judging you if you're like friends before the show?
Well, I mean, we were friends, but there's something about Brooklyn that was always very unattainable. She always very much had a guard up. She was always very much more talented than anyone in the entire city, no matter what you could do. You could always tell that Brooklyn was like, what did they say? You know that Sia song where she says something about the chosen one? I can't remember which song it is, but they would always, some people would perform it, and when they would say the chosen one, they would point at Brooklyn. Like we knew she was a big star, you know, especially when she won Continental. Even when she went and did Continental the first time and got second place, we were like, she's going to go back and win it. It's Brooklyn. So for me, there wasn't a big shift in her being on the judging panel because she was always kind of very judgy and always at this sort of star power for me. I remember one time I watched her on one of her fundraisers. And I think I was still drinking. Yeah, I wasn't doing drag, so I was still drinking at the time. So I was wrecked. And she did The Climb by Miley Cyrus, and I cried like a 2-year-old. Like I'm a huge Brooklyn Heights fan. So for me, it wasn't a huge disconnect. But maybe for the other girls, like I know some of the other girls were a lot closer with her. Like her and Tainomi were hanging out almost daily, you know. So that was probably a weird disconnect. And so,
yeah, I mean, I guess it, like I said, for you, I guess it's almost like, if you knew her, but you always felt like she had a different air about her and she always conducted herself like a judge rather, or sort of not above, but sort of higher than other people perhaps, then I guess I can see why maybe it would have softened the relationship so it didn't feel too weird.
But it was also comforting because I remember during my panic attack, she was very much, she was extremely supportive. And they didn't air any of that. But she was like keeping eye contact with me. She was doing breathing exercises with me, but she wasn't doing it in a way where you could see it. It was very, very much just like a connection between us. She was like mouthing, are you okay? Like, is everything fine? So she was very supportive in that sense, which I really appreciate. And I wish that they aired those things because I feel like in the judges kind of got a lot of bad flack in the first season. And I felt like I really appreciated that from Brooklyn, but that's how the cookie crumbles, Diva.
No, I guess they can't show everything, unfortunately, but nice to know that you know, you had comfort in that moment. We'll sort of touch on that a bit in a bit, but so coming back to the mini challenge. So the other thing that was quite sort of iconic about that episode for you was obviously the trip as well, so how did that kind of, because it kind of seemed like I didn't quite understand how it happened. They sort of showed it so quickly I couldn't quite tell what was going on.
There wasn't so it's just a black screen for you to leave, and they only had a very small runway for you to walk down, and next to the runway was a 3-foot drop. because this was on a raised stage. So there wasn't anything that strictly said, this is the way out. So I was kind of trying to find where the opening was to the curtain, because there wasn't like an arrow, there wasn't anything. You just had to walk out of this curtain. And I stepped quite literally right next to the runway. So it's like the runway was here, my foot went here, and I just went down, and my care person caught me. So the person who actually puts the blanket around me at the end of the episode, Allie, she caught me and helped me off. And I actually had like a whole scrape down my leg and everything. It hurt so bad. I was like limping back into the room. But they didn't want me to say anything or me to get mad about anything. But after that, I think they ended up changing the way they brought the girls in and out, because they didn't want another girl to fall. But made for great TV.
It did make for good TV. I remember watching it. I remember the noise. I was like, that sounded like that really hurt. Like it wasn't just a little, you could really hear it.
Bye.
Yeah, it did. It really hurt. It did not feel good at all. But I didn't want to be a bother. I didn't want them to send me home for being that girl. So I kept my mouth shut. But if I didn't think I was going home, I would have made a bit more noise. I made a bit of noise actually off camera for some other things that we'll get to, but yeah, I didn't make a noise for that one.
Fair enough. Well, you're being professional, obviously, so that's
and I think that it's but I also think having boundaries is very important, especially in our industry. And I feel like I just needed to maybe put up some boundaries about me eating.
No, I mean, yeah, like they've got to make sure safety. It's important. Like, it did.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, when I watched the bit where you fell, I was looking. You could see like a raised bit, and then you fell down like you said there was a hole, and I was be like, yeah, that's kind of looks like it's not very well marked. It just, I'm sure I would do the same thing. I'm so clumsy.
Yeah, and I just went. Do.
And so anyway, after your epic fall, you find out that the first week's main challenge is the design challenge.
Yes.
And you each get those boxes, and you were assigned, was it
Much Music Video Prance?
Yes, which was kind of like disco vibes and stuff like that. What did you feel about the when you found out it was a design challenge?
So actually, do you know what a Much Music Video dance is?
No.
So Much Music is our MTV in Canada.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So what they used to do when I was growing up, and I think they still have them now, but especially when I was growing up, is they would have a thing called a Much Music Video Dance. And it's where Much Music would come to your school or your area, put up gigantic screens, have a DJ come in, and they would basically just play music videos and you would dance to them. And that was like our school dance, but you would be watching the music video as it would happen. It would be sponsored by Much Music. So they were called Much Music Video Dances. So that's why mine was like a Much Music Video Prance. So it was meant to be very young, night on the town, kind of stuff like that. When I found out it was a sewing challenge, I was a little annoyed because I was like, why is the first thing I have to show something I make? Like, why does it have to be that? But I was fine. I was actually feeling quite confident. My confidence only varied when the cameras cut, because when we first got them, it was the end of the day. It had been, I think, already like a 10-hour day. Like it was wild, 10 or 12 hours. Like it was an insane day. It was so late. And basically what they said was, we're going to get you guys to open up all of these boxes, and then we're cutting the cameras. And when you cut the cameras, you're not allowed to talk, right? You go on hard ice. So we couldn't ask for help. We couldn't chat about anything. We couldn't be like, hey, what do you think of this outfit? What do you think of this? Like a lot of the stuff that you see in design challenges now on the show was stuff that we were almost expecting. And we had to just sit silently and just sew quietly on our own for 8 hours. I think 6 day one, 4, and like 2 the next day, right? So we went until like 1 a.m., but just in pure silence, quiet silence. We were allowed to gently speak about some things that wouldn't have to do with the show, but even then they would be like, okay, stop talking. Like, we'll just put on music, nobody talk. We want all that stuff for camera. So for me, I was frustrated because like we hadn't unpacked. So I couldn't find my, what's it called? Patterns. So I couldn't find my patterns, which I needed. I panicked and I didn't pour out my whole box and realized I had an entire bolt of blue fabric at the bottom of my box, which I just didn't notice. So it's almost like they threw me a lifeline that I just never took advantage of. And then also, I couldn't ask for help with my sewing machine because I do know how to sew if I have patterns and if I have my sewing machine all set up. But there was a part of the sewing machine that I'm forgetting how to put together, and Lemon knew how to do it. And all I needed was if I were to just have had the opportunity to be like, Lemon, can you help me put together this sewing machine? I'm having some trouble. And I would have been fine. If I would have just found that piece of blue fabric, asked Lemon, kind of had the cameras rolling for those things, I think it would have been a bit easier for me. But because we had to just sit in silence and make this, I felt like that was kind of like detrimental to my success. But also, hindsight's 2022. So I did what I could with the means that I was given. And, I feel like I've made a pretty good career out of it. So
Yeah, no, and like I when you started cutting up the CDs, I actually thought that was quite a cool idea. And like the final gown that you made, I think they sort of said that it was just a bit short, and it was maybe compared to some other people like Jimbo or like Stasi, who did these kind of quite like amazing outfits, and like quite, you could tell they obviously were designers and they had done that a lot. Maybe yours looked quite simple, but I actually thought yours looked quite nice. Like I thought the CD bit actually was quite cool.
Oh, thanks. I mean, we all don't have to have good taste because it was ugly. I put a giant thick leather band right at my waist to make me look huge. It was awful. It was so bad. And it's okay. We can say it was bad. It's been 3 years. We can all just be okay with it being bad.
It was short, but I think there have been other outfits on design challenges that potentially were worse. So I thought compared to that,
I don't think it was the worst thing on the runway ever, but it was bad. But there have been much worse. I wouldn't say it's the worst thing. But yeah, it wasn't good.
And so yeah, so obviously when you went on the stage and you were doing your runway, did you know at that point, like, I might be in the bottom because you'd seen everyone else's outfits, or were you still quite confident you could sell it?
I had a moment with Kyne where right before I went on stage, I went, Kyne, I don't feel really good about my outfit. I feel like I might be in the bottom. And she went, if you stay, I'll tell you what I think about it. She's such a I love her so much. I was like, oh, Kyne, the cameras weren't even rolling. That wasn't even for camera. Oh my God. But I think I knew I wasn't going to do well, especially when I went out, they were quite quiet. And then kind of when I'd seen what other people wore, but I think I thought I would be kind of okay because some people were much worse, or at least in my mind, I was just like, not everyone here looks great. So maybe I'll just kind of get by my teeth. I knew I was in the bottom when it was me and Boa standing next to each other, and I was counting who they liked and who they didn't like. And I knew they were going to like Rita. So I said, if they hate Boa, they love me. And if they love Boa, they hate me. And they had started loving Boa. So I went, oh, it's over for me. It's done. They're going to roast me because you can tell it's always 3 and 3. They like 3, they don't like 3. So it had already been kind of like the middle ground for them. So I was just like, oh, it's done for me, babes.
So, yeah, I mean, so you obviously did unfortunately land in the bottom with Lemon. So if you thought that you were going to be maybe safe, who did you think potentially would be in the bottom then? Kyne and who else?
Me and Kyne.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Me and Kyne, because they didn't like Kyne, and Kyne and I had a moment off screen where she looked at me and she said, they're going to put us in the bottom and you're going to send me home. And then she started to cry and I went, I am. I was such a little I was like, I know, babe, but it'll be a great show. And then when it was Lemon, they didn't show this either, but when it was Lemon, I said,
so that was going to be my question. When you were in the bottom, so you did get in the bottom with Lemon, did you think that you were going to stay in the lip sync?
No, I knew I was leaving.
Why?
Well, I mean, I fell, I got stuck. My outfit was worse than her, and I knew she had this dance background. I knew she was American. I knew Lemon was, do you know when you meet someone and you're like, oh, this is a star. This person is good. This person's really good at what they do. When you talk to Lemon, it's like talking to someone who's reading off of a teleprompter. Like she's so fast. She's so quick. She knew exactly what to say next. She was funny. She was witty. I went, oh, it's done for me. They're not going to save me for anything. My leg could be falling off and I could have this incredible storyline and they would save Lemon over that because she's going to be such good TV for this. So it's just like, I'm out of here. I thought I had like small hope that there might be a double save because we're Canadian. We can't send somebody home on episode 1. I was kind of hoping for that, but I sort of had come to terms with going home. So my whole thing was just like, I just want to do what I do best before I leave. You know, I want to make sure that I put on a great show. So at least I'll get bookings from this, you know? So it's kind of where I
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's difficult because we know what Lemon's done now. Like we saw her progression on the show and then she's been on UK versus the World. So, and she's become very well known. So we can see obviously that she's a star, but it's difficult because we hadn't seen that much from you. But I actually think when I rewatched the lip sync, I actually think it was really close. I know now who won the lip sync, but when I rewatched it, I was like, actually, yeah, they kept showing you quite a lot. And then when Lemon did a few splits and tricks, they showed her. But I actually thought it was a really close lip sync. I don't think it was sort of really obvious that she was staying over you. I think you actually did a really good job.
I appreciate that. And I think I did a good job too, but I knew production wise, she had more to give than I did. I gave everything away. I talked about my sobriety. I had a bunch of quippy moments. They had nothing more for me. What else were they going to take from me? Right. And a lot of the girls in Toronto thought like, well, what about the storyline between you and I? What about this between you and I? And it's just like, they don't care about that. They don't care about the stuff that happens in the bars. They don't care about the stuff that happens behind the scenes because they don't know about it. They're trying to create a TV show with the cast of girls that are there. So it's not about my prior relationships with any of these girls. It's about how those relationships are developing on the TV show and how they're going to be related to audience. Because a lot of the times, a lot of that stuff feels like an inside joke. And I think that's what was such magic about season 1 is that it didn't feel like an inside joke. It felt like everyone kind of was in on whatever was happening on the screen, when I feel like sometimes some things on Drag Race, especially like remember with Coco and Alyssa, they had all that drama, but no one really knew what it was. They just knew that Coco and Alyssa hated each other. I feel like a lot of the girls were holding on to like that idea where they were like, but we used to fight a lot. It's just like, yeah, nobody knows about that though. Who cares? You know?
Well, that's very down to earth of you and very sort of like, you've got a very good attitude towards it. I think that you realize that it's a TV show and everything, probably because you have background in that. So I think, so sort of going back a little bit. So on the actual main stage, when they were doing, you talked about the fact they were doing the critiques with Boa and you sort of realized they liked her, so they must not like you, sort of your outfit. Obviously, we kind of touched on this before. You did sort of have a bit of a panic attack on stage. So I was just wondering if you could kind of talk about what actually happened, because it all happened quite quickly. We never really saw what actually happened necessarily.
Are you okay?
I just feel a little bit of a panic attack coming on.
Okay, don't panic.
So my anxieties are rooted in death and dying. So when I have a panic attack, it's because my mind is telling me that I'm in a state of emergency and it's like that I'm gonna die. Like I feel like in my mind that I truly believe that something's happening, I'm in danger, and it's going to be endangering my life. Obviously, those things are wrong and I need to de-escalate them, and I do. But what happened was I was in pain because drag is painful. I was cold because it was solar vortex where we were at. And I actually found out later that they were doing an unloading of a piece of set. So there was doors open. So we were basically outside because all of the cold air from outside was coming in onto the main stage. So I was absolutely frigid cold. And I was wearing the least amount of clothing of, I would say, everyone in the room. Like our producers had winter coats on and I was in a bikini. Like, guys, I'm cold. So I'm cold. I'm exhausted. I think I only slept like 3 hours the night before because I was so nervous. And then for lunch, it was only like thick, greasy Chinese food. And I knew what I was wearing. And I had such little body confidence that I didn't want to be bloated. So I didn't eat lunch. So I hadn't eaten. I'm cold, I'm tired, right? So all of these things are kind of going wrong in my body. I've got, pins in my head stabbing me, my feet hurt, I'm cold, like all these things. And I just needed one thing to set me off the edge. Like I knew it was just, I was kind of teetering. And when I knew they weren't going to like me, I was like, maybe they just won't like me and it'll be soft and we'll move on. But they were ruthless and a lot of it didn't get aired. Like a lot didn't get aired. There was a lot of really hurtful things that were said about my body, like just my composition of and stuff. And seeing now, like a lot of them who have come out with things like maybe it was something said through an earpiece or something, but there were some unkind things said. I don't want anything to come over and like to put hate on anyone, because a lot of people from the show have, they are nice people and it is just a TV show and it has been 3 years. But there was some things that were said that weren't, didn't make me feel the best. So from there, it kind of just pushed me over the edge. Then it started like, I started to feel dizzy. I started to sort of like feel like I was going to faint. The blood had left my face. The blood had left my head. And I was like, oh, I'm going to faint. Like that's where this is going. I was just like, the panic attack has gotten to the point where now I'm going to fall over because my body just needs to shut down. So it was when Stacey was kind of I remember Stacey was asking me, what's in your box? What's this? What is this? I started to just see like 3 of her, like everything started to get blurry and I started cold sweating and everything. And that's when it started to happen. So I knew from myself, boundary queen, I had to put a boundary down and I had to say, nope, I'm having a panic attack and I'm just going to go through with this right now. And I'm going to do it. And I thought they were going to cut the cameras because that's what I thought you would do if someone was in a state where they were, like that, but they didn't. That's fine. So I just went through it and I knew I just need to go through this moment right now. I need to have some water. I need to de-escalate. And then I need to move on. And I did do that. And they were kind enough to allow me to go through that and to warm me up a little bit. Because another thing you didn't see because they didn't air it was I yelled, I'm so fucking cold. Like I was just like, I just had to let them know I'm freezing. So they wrapped me up in a blanket, let me drink some water, calm down. And then I was able to finish the critique. But I feel like the critique did influence, or my panic attack did then influence the rest of the critique, because it went from you're so ugly, this is horrible, to I actually kind of like it. It's not that bad. And I was like, let's not do this. And I even said to not Brooklyn, but who was the guest judge again? What was her name? Alicia Cuthbert. I said to Alicia, I was like, babe, we don't have to do this. You can tell me it's ugly. I've had my moment. I'm fine now. You can say it's ugly. And she went, no, I promise it's good. And I was just like, okay, then I'm done. Like, we're fine. Like, we don't have to do this then. Like, let's move on.
Yeah, I mean, it's very you're very, very self-aware, because like, yeah, I couldn't tell because I don't really know. I knew of I think that's how you pronounce him, Alicia, I think, or Elisa, whatever it is. I knew Alicia. Her, she's a famous actress, and she was really sweet. And I actually thought, like I said, I thought your outfit was actually quite cute. I mean, maybe not compared to some of the other people's, but it was certainly not the worst I've ever seen. But the bit that I thought was quite funny, and I thought it showed that you had sort of quite strength of character, was she sort of said, oh, you haven't heard my critique. And you sort of went, I'll be there in a minute, just let the blood go to my head. And then you sort of said, okay. And you flung off the blanket. And I thought it was such like a kind of cool moment of you being like, right, done, let's move on.
You didn't get to hear my critiques.
Oh no, baby, I'm gonna be here for your critique as soon as that blood rushes back to my head. Yeah. Go for it.
We're good. Let's do this. Yeah, that's very much me when I come out of one of those. I'm like, okay, it's over. No one talk about it.
No, I mean, it was good. And I'm glad you sort of came out of it and everything. So it was nice to see a genuine moment of not everyone is going to be okay being critiqued. Not everyone always feels great. Some people have anxiety or have panic attacks, and that's totally fine. And you're being judged on your talent and your drag in front of the world, and people are filming this. I can only imagine what that must feel like.
Yeah. And especially I'm a Virgo. I'm very controlling. I'm very controlling of my aesthetic. I'm very controlling of what I look like. I'm very controlling about how I'm presented to the world. So to have so little control I didn't like, I didn't like that. I was just like, I don't always look like this. I look incredible. I look beautiful when I walk out. So when I had to walk out in something so like that I didn't like, that they had to literally super glue back onto me because it snapped off, that I was just like, no, 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 no. I don't like this. So I think there was a lot of factors that kind of went into it.
It's I can totally understand. And you kind of touched a little bit on this earlier, but one thing that was quite for season one, there was a lot of criticism that the judges were very harsh in their critiques, and you kind of said earlier that a lot didn't get aired, and they said some nasty things about your body and everything, which is like unacceptable. What were your thoughts on the judging? Did you agree that they were too harsh?
I think a lot gets left on the cutting room floor. And while some things were said to me that were a bit raunchy, there were some things that were quite kind that were said to a lot of other people that didn't make it. So I think that while they were a little harsh at points, I feel like there was a lot. I feel like there was a direction with the editing where they wanted them to look harsh, because there was a lot of moments where like there was explanations of why they were saying things that were left out. And there was a lot of like nice things that they had said that were left out. And a lot of just the kind of harsher things were left in. So I think, yeah, maybe they were a little rough around the edges and they could have softened a little bit. But I also think it's not just one person. And also remember, this isn't someone speaking. There's also a microphone in their ear. So I think we have to keep consideration that there isn't always just one person saying what they think. They may have somebody saying like, hey, I want you to say this, right? Because again, it's a TV show. And I think that's what a lot of people forget sometimes, is that there isn't just one person making these decisions. There isn't just one person doing these things. It is a team of people. It is a team of writers that are creating these situations on the fly in the moment to create good TV. So while I think, yeah, the judges were a bit harsh, I don't think it's to be put on the three of them. I think it needs to be put on more of an aspect of the whole show,
Yeah, it's a good point. I remember I watched an interview, because obviously there was a lot of backlash against particularly Jeffrey, which I thought was like obviously quite unfair, and like people were being like racist, and which is just obviously unacceptable. But he did an interview, and he was saying that I had things fed through an earpiece, and I thought that was really interesting. That a lot of people probably don't know that they do that for the critiques as well as just the runway walks and everything, that they're kind of told what to say, and it kind of shouldn't be surprising, but it also kind of is.
Yeah. Like, do you really think some of them are that witty where they're picking up a lot of those jokes right on the fly? No, there's writers back there, right? There's producers back there, and they're all creating those moments on the fly for the television show. And I think a lot of people forget that, and a lot of people will jump right to someone's throat and they're just the face, So it's TV, guys.
Yeah, and I think obviously the judge, I think if you watch season 2 and 3, I think they have softened it. So maybe I think they've learned from season 1. I think maybe it seems softer, I think, in my opinion, than season 1.
Season 3, I think they finally found a good middle ground, because season 2, I felt like they were almost like too scared to be a little mean. Like they were just so nice. And I was just like, oh God, say something. But season 3, I feel like they kind of found their kind of flow.
No, it makes sense. Every TV show is going to have like teething issues, aren't they, when it's the first season? So, so obviously, yeah. Unfortunately, you got eliminated after your lip sync, even though I thought you did a really good job. What did that feel like then, being the Canadian pork chop, is what they said?
I hate it. I just hate the name Canadian pork chop. I remember even when she said it, I rolled my eyes. I went, ew, I hate that. It's just the name I think is gross, but it was fine. I mean, I was devastated in the moment. I was very upset. I felt like my whole world was coming down around me. I thought my career was over. I felt like I've wasted money because I borrowed a lot of money. I felt like I wasted people's money. I felt like I wasted people's time. I felt like I failed and all these things. My career I thought was over. So that all happens in the first month really. It took me a long time to kind of bounce back. And it took me a few months to kind of like get my groove back with performing. And then once the show actually premiered, it took me a long time to kind of get my groove back from seeing it again because it re-traumatizes you. But yeah, now I feel better. Now, 3 years later, I feel a lot better. But the at the time, it was rough.
No, I can totally understand. So I'm glad you've kind of come to a good place about it. So would you say then, although you left first, do you think that Canada's drag or just drag race in general has changed your life and your career?
Yeah. I mean, I had said to my husband before I left, I either want to go first, fifth, or win. And I feel like I manifested that for Priyanka and Lemon. I like gave them my energy for fifth and winner. I'm just saying. But because everybody remembers those people, right? Everybody remembers the girl who goes home first, because it's a big splash. It makes a big thing. Everybody watches episode 1. If they don't watch the rest of the season, they usually watch episode 1. So I was fine with that. And then fifth place is usually a fan favorite. Like it tends to be where a fan favorite sits. So I was just like, oh, that would be good. And if you win, you get $100,000 tax free. So I was just like, oh, that would be nice too. So I feel like while it does suck in the moment, it has changed my life. I became a very big advocate again for sobriety, especially in queer spaces. I've been able to do talks with like nurses and therapists and mental health specialists. I've been able to work professionally in those industries, telling them my story and telling them how these things are actually important to us and how you can help us and all these things. So that's been really cool. I've been able to do incredible campaigns. I've been able to work with like Neutrogena and Crest and a lot of really cool people who I was working with before, but now I'm able to work with on another level. I've ventured into more things that feel more true to who I am as a person rather than who I felt I needed to be for, Toronto, because Toronto, you're just like a glorified go-go dancer. Now it feels like I'm actually creating art that I love. So I feel like Drag Race has changed my life and I wouldn't change anything about it.
No, that's very, like what you said about being first, fifth, or winner. That's actually really true. People always remember the first one. Fifth one is kind of the middle. So usually that's enough time for people to like you.
Yeah.
And then the winner obviously gets the money and the crown. So one thing actually I wanted to ask about, we kind of touched on this earlier, it kind of reminded me, was in Untucked of that episode, the Kyne was kind of, I think, portrayed as like the quote unquote villain of that episode or that particular situation. How did that feel for you then, almost? Because you must have known you were in the bottom and she was kind of stealing the spotlight a bit. Was that genuinely what it was like? And what's your relationship like with her and everything? Did you know her before? And what did that feel like?
I mean, have you ever had an anxiety attack? Have you ever had a panic attack?
No.
So what happens after that is you hit such a wave of exhaustion that you could fall asleep. So in that moment, I was kind of just coming off of it, like the crying and everything. So I was so tired. Like I was so unbelievably exhausted that I almost didn't care. Like I almost was just like, shut the fuck up. I do not care. Shut up. I don't care if you feel like you're in the top. I don't feel like if you're in the bottom. I don't care if you're being rude to Boa. Shut the fuck up. I think I had said a couple things in the Untucked about like, shut up, like you're being whiny, like nobody cares, but they didn't put that in, obviously. And I was just the like frail, weak, sad girl. So no one paid attention. But they also did some weird editing with that. They trying to show that Starzy was yelling at somebody else, but Starzy was just yelling into the abyss on how she wasn't in the top.
It means absolutely nothing if you don't have character on that stage.
And she felt like she needed to be, but they made it kind of look like she was yelling at Kyne. And then also, yeah, everyone I think was a little annoyed with Kyne, but Kyne, I had worked with Kyne a lot before, and she always was a little kind of like weird. Like you could tell like she wasn't in drag spaces a lot. So when she was in drag spaces, she kind of acted how she felt like she needed to act. Like she would be like, this is where you're acting and this is where you do something. Like it felt very like that. And for me, it was always very harmless because I was just like, oh, she's just new to these spaces, whatever. It's not a big deal. She means well. But when we were on Drag Race, it's like it was on steroids because she was just like, oh, well, now the cameras are on. I'm going to be like, this is my moment. But it kind of came off as like sort of rude. And I think she realized that and she really ran with it. And now she's like so famous on TikTok with all of her math stuff. So I love Kyne. I think Kyne's a great person. I think she's jokes. I think she's fun. If I were to ever run into her, I have nothing but nice things to say to her. I have nothing but love for the girl. So things change when you're in the Thunderdome. Sometimes you act like a and that's fine.
No, it's true. And I think, like you said, she's now gone with the maths and everything. It's sort of, I think she's become really famous and everything.
Oh yeah.
Was there anyone on set that you didn't really get on with?
No, I wasn't really there long enough for me to hate anybody. I found no, everyone was really nice. Alona talked a lot, but that's it. I was just like, girl just wants her camera time, but she talked a lot. But that's about it. There was some stories that were like kind of offside that a lot of us were a little uncomfortable with by a certain person that didn't make it to camera, because I think it would have painted them in a very poor light, which I'm not going to say who, because that would be bad. But there was some kind of things that were said off camera or on camera that were like, ooh, that's not good. And we had to educate them. And then they kind of realized it and moved on. And but I think if they would have aired that, it would have not been great. So I'm happy that it didn't come to camera.
Right. I'm sure there's a lot that happens. And especially, I think sometimes you hear about things that happen, especially they edit sometimes, especially if it's someone who's like a fan favorite or someone who goes quite far in the competition, they edit to sort of, otherwise people would dislike that person.
Yeah, and they want to keep the love towards them. They don't want to have a very polarizing opinion about them. While I think some of the conversation that happened was important, it was a journey getting there. So
well, I mean, you had a great run on the show, even though you were only there for one episode. I think you were quite iconic in that you had some really, like, the getting stuck in the tights, the falling over, and also the panic attack, even though they weren't necessarily good things for you, like they must have been uncomfortable. I think it created, like, you were memorable because of it, and I think in some ways that's probably good for your career. So
great. Yeah, no complaints, babe. I'm feeling good.
So the name of my channel is Drag Tea Served. So I was wondering if you could serve me some drag tea and maybe tell me something that happened off camera or something that you wish had been shown that didn't get shown.
Oh my God, I feel like I've been doing that this whole time. I feel like I've just shattered my NDA. Oh my God, what happened off camera? Did me and Priyanka kissing make it to camera? Did you see that?
I don't think so.
Oh, me and Priyanka, when I walked in after this is stupid, but when I walked in after the challenge, the photo shoot challenge, and Priyanka was already out of drag, I was still in drag. She went, Juice, and I was like, and then we kissed, like we shared like a little peck, and then we just moved on. And then the whole next day when we were both in our confessionals, they were like, so you and Priyanka kissed. Can you tell us more about that? And I was like, you don't kiss your friends? Is that not a normal thing? Like, I was confused. And then even Priyanka was just like, did they ask you about us kissing? And I was like, yeah, that was weird, right? And she was like, yeah, I think they were trying to make us look like we had a showmance. And I was like, ew.
I guess they'll try and figure out any angle they can. And I guess it kind of, in some ways, it kind of makes sense, because I think you talked about how your like sensuality is very much part of your brand, and Priyanka's like a massive flirt. So I think that kind of
they were trying to find me like Priyanka flirting with all the girls on cast, I guess. But yeah, no, we just had a little kiss. We just had a little kiss.
Oh. No, I don't think that got shown. That's interesting that to hear that, and they tried to push that storyline. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Oh, there was one thing. After my panic attack, I had my blanket on and we were about to walk back into the workroom, and they said, Juice, you have to take the blanket off for continuity. You weren't wearing a blanket walking off stage. You have to put the blanket on, or you have to take the blanket off so it looks like you just walked off stage. And I went, no. And they were like, Juice. And it like held us up for a while, because I was like, no, I'm cold. I just had a panic attack. I'm going through it. I can't stop crying. I'm wearing my blanket. And I'm freezing. You warm this place up and I'll take the blanket off. And they were like, we know you're really cold. We're really sorry about what's happening with you today. And I was like, no, so mean. And then we came to a compromise where I could walk in and I could be the first to walk in, and then someone could put the blanket on me right away. And I said, fine, but I'm not taking the blankets off until you say action. We're like, okay. God, I was a nightmare. Maybe that's why they sent me home.
Well, that's actually kind of an interesting question. I was going to say, do you think that when people, not you specifically, but do you think when people are not complying with what they want, whether it's justified or not, because I think in your case, having the blanket was actually justifiable, but do you think that does do you think they think, oh, well, we're going to get rid of this person because they're being annoying?
I don't know. I don't think so. I'm actually having our director, or like our main producer and director, and one of our casting people over for lunch on Tuesday. So maybe I'll ask them then. They're coming over. I'm gonna be like, "Did you send me home because I was difficult?" I'm gonna have them in my house so they can't go anywhere.
Well, that's fun. Well, it sounds like at least you're kind of friends with the production people. So I guess that's kind of friends with it.
No, I love them. They're all sweet guys. And it's a TV show and it's been so long. Who cares? So
we care.
we care. We want to know. Oh my God, do you want to know another thing that happened at the finale? We were all on hard ice where you're not allowed to talk. And I hadn't seen anybody for the month. I've been alone because I'm not allowed to see my friends. And I'm in my gown and I'm catching up with everybody. I'm talking with everybody. I'm asking them things about the show. And they went up to me and they said, Juice, we can't ask you again to hard ice. You have to stop talking. You have to stop asking these questions. And I looked at them dead in their eyes and I went, what the are you going to do? Send me home? I don't care. I'll talk as much as I want. And they were like, please God, just shut up. And I went, no. I kept talking. I was a nightmare. I was so off.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, it's interesting to hear that. So this was at the finale, like when they were at the actual tape.
When they brought us all back.
Sorry?
When they brought us all back and we were like hiding in a room because the girls didn't know we were there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, interesting to hear that sort of thing. But I suppose, after a while, you probably just don't care because what they're going to do, you've already been eliminated.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Send me home? Not give me $100,000? I think I said, what are you going to do? Send me home first? They were like, oh, she's got us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting. And I guess, hopefully it didn't sort of wreck your chances to go on again if you want to, I suppose.
I mean, Diva, even if it did, girl, if that's going to be what stops them from putting me on, then that's their loss. And it's also a brand new production team. They've wiped everybody clean and there's a brand new people. Season 2 was brand new. There wasn't a lot of people who stayed from season 1. So season 2 and season 3 were brand new people.
Fair enough. No, that's interesting to hear. Just touching on something, there was something earlier you said that there were a few moments where you put up boundaries or something and you said, oh, we'll get to it later. Was there anything else that you wanted to add about that? I think you said after your fall, there were other moments where you spoke up, but they didn't show it or something.
Yeah, the blanket, I put up a boundary. The talking, I put up a boundary. I said, no, I'm not listening to you. I'm talking. I've been alone for a month, So there was a few moments where I just, oh my God, no, there was this one. I remember now. It was shaving. And they said, because we're a franchise, they said, when you get the franchise, you realize there's a lot of different things. And one of the challenges of the Drag Race workroom is there's no running water. So there's nowhere for you to shave. And you can't all go to the bathroom together to shave. So you have to figure out shaving. So they brought us all hot water bowls to shave our faces before we got ready. And they had a share. And I shaved. And I was one of the first people in the bowl. And I shaved and I cut myself. And I put my razor back inside the bowl. And there was blood in it. And I looked at them and I said, this is stupid. There's blood in this bowl. My blood is in this bowl. And you want every other girl to now use this bowl because I have blood in it now. How are you going to fix this? And then they were like, yeah, okay, and then they left and I finished my shaving and I don't know what they did. But I told the other girls, I was like, you can't use this bowl. I've literally bled in it. Like, use it if you want, but like, it's not sanitary. And they were like, a lot of them were like, yeah, like, this is up. Like, let us go to a bathroom. So there was those kind of moments where, again, season 1, working out the kinks, they had to figure those things out.
No, it's interesting to hear about those sorts of things and sort of behind the scenes. And that's obviously what my channel is about. So
the tea diva. Watch, I'm going to see a tea. They didn't let them have running water, says Juice Boxx. I got a call from the producer being like, what the Juice?
I think other people, not about Kyne necessarily, but I've heard that before from lots of people that like things like that. They don't have running water, or there's things that should be obvious, but they're not.
Right. So when they say these girls are like, your beard showing through it, I would have been like, let me shave then.
Well, so I'd love to go on to some subscriber questions.
Sure.
I had lots of questions from people about you. There were quite a lot of questions that weren't really questions. They were basically statements, basically a lot of thirsty comments,
Yeah.
basically saying, "Are you single and you're hot?"
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Not single. I do have a husband. We've been together for 18 years. But I appreciate the love and affection and the attention. But yes, no, not single.
So the first actual question is, what's your favorite kind of juice box?
I'm sorry. That's always my answer. Anytime someone asks that, I'm like, just to see what happens. But I don't know. We'll say lemonade or fruit punch. We'll give that answer.
I'm going to have to cut all of that. I'm going to have to cut the word out. So if anyone wants to figure out what
Just
word
bleep
that
it.
was,
just bleep it. Do a little beep.
I'll bleep it and you can try and guess what word Juice Boxx was saying.
Sorry.
That's okay. What's your biggest accomplishment after Drag Race was another question.
What was my biggest accomplishment after Drag Race? I think it was just building a career. I feel like I was very much my own biggest cheerleader when it came to building my career. And I feel like if I was a different person, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for me just, pulling up my bootstraps and saying, I'm not going to be known as just the sad girl with anxiety who got sent home first on Canada's Drag Race. That's not going to be my legacy. That's not going to be my career. So I think my biggest achievement is just the career I've been able to build. I've surrounded myself with an incredible team of people who are very much on my side, who are very much in my corner, who have the same values and the same idea of where I want to be and how they can help me and how we can help each other. And I'm really proud of myself for that, because I feel like if I kind of just like laid back and went back to working in the bars, the career that I have today, I feel like I really worked hard, and I sometimes don't give myself the props that I think I deserve. But yeah, I'm gonna be a little cocky for a minute. Worked my ass off.
Do it. No, I mean, you have built a career and it's really impressive. And like, you got on Drag Race, which is already such an achievement. So many people applied that I'm sure you felt would have got on over you, but they didn't. So they obviously liked something about you.
Mm-hmm. They said, that one's hot and looks like she scares easy. Let's get that one.
Well, let's hope it was just the first bit, not the second.
Yeah.
Another question was, and this person said they loved yours and Cynthia Kisses, who was on season 2, your podcast, Semi-Qualified Queens. And they said, what made you decide to start the podcast, and how has the reception been from fans?
I mean, there was a lot. It's actually my background on my TV or my computer. You just see us right there. So funny. But I think when it came to Semi-Qualified Queens, Cynthia and I were very similar. For years, we were told by Brat Pack, like the Kendall and Gia, that we are very similar in our aesthetic, in the way that we spoke, in our comedy. They were like, you two are the exact same person. So it wasn't until we met that we kind of were like, oh yeah, I kind of get it. And I was complimented because she's so beautiful that I was just like, oh my God, they think that me and her, oh my God, wow, okay. And then it wasn't until she got on the show that I think we got a little closer. Once she got on the show, we were able to do a gig together and we were able to chat a lot. And I was like, oh, I really like this girl. Like, she's really fun. We really vibe. We really get each other. And then she got on the show and she was obviously very busy and things were happening. I was busy and doing my thing and things were happening. And then kind of once her season ended, my season had now been over for 2 years. And they were starting to cast for season 3. She was sort of, I think, looking for other projects to sort of build herself as a brand and build out kind of other means of kind of staying relevant and all of those things. And she had contacted me because of manager that we now share. We didn't share a manager at the time, but we now share a manager, was like, you two need to start a podcast together. I need to see it. I would love to hear you two just chat. You have great chemistry. I want to see it. And it wasn't until we did a gig together in Calgary that we were like, and then we were on the mic together, that we were like, oh, we could do this. We kind of have a good rapport. We have a good sense of each other. I feel like we could kind of make this happen. And it's been great. I mean, it's definitely a slow build. We are 2 Canadians in a very oversaturated market, but we have a really nice, dedicated amount of listeners, which is great. It's slowly building. We have lots of plans for Semi-Qualified Queens in 2023, which we're really happy about. And we're building on a lot of those things. And it's just kind of become another facet and another outlet of our careers. You know, we just now have a podcast along with our live shows, and me with my Twitch, and Cynthia with Brat Pack and her performances. So it's just become just one more thing that we can add to our roster.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point that you made about it's like another feather in your cap, or whatever they say. It's another stream of income. That kind of, we kind of touched on this. I mentioned it earlier, but we haven't talked about your Twitch. So I'll be honest, I don't really play video games, so I know very little about Twitch. I Googled it earlier and sort of read about it. But if you can kind of explain maybe to other people who don't know what it is, like how is that? Because I think that's a big part of your income, right? I would assume.
No, I don't make a ton of not even a hobby. I think I could make a ton of money from it if I really wanted, but I'm at the point now where I'm making all the money I need for my live shows. So Twitch for me is just kind of like my happy escape, you know? So I'll explain kind of what it is. Twitch is a live streaming platform. It is not simply dedicated to video games. Video games is a large portion of it, but Twitch is just for live streaming. So say if you love cooking, they have people who are just live streaming cooking. They have people who are just live streaming, just chatting. I love a just chatting stream, you know, where I just sit and talk to people. I love it. They have interviews. They have games. They have esports. They have sometimes it's literally, I've watched people just literally live stream eggs being hatched. It is just a platform where people can live stream and have people subscribe. They have benefits for their subscribers. They have different things that they do. What I do in my Twitch channel is I chat a lot. I chat a lot because they don't come to see how good I am at video games, because I'm not good at video games. I enjoy video games. I love video games. I have a lot of fun playing them, but they come for me. If I said, hey guys, guess what? All week long, all we're going to do is chat Monday to Friday, 9 till 6 every day. Come on in and we'll just chat. I'd be fine. I would be happy. They would be happy. It would be great. Right. But I play video games because I like to, and it helps fill the time and it helps fill kind of the empty space. But the way I kind of explain it to some people, what Twitch is it's like OnlyFans. But I don't have to get naked. You know, people subscribe and they have benefits with those subscriptions. And if they don't want to subscribe, they can just watch, you know, and they can still chat, but they don't get those like extra benefits with the subscription. But it's fun. It's my little corner of the internet. I have an incredible little community I've created. I've had a lot of people being like, I wouldn't have met these friends that are now lifelong friends without your Twitch community. I wouldn't have been able to have met these people. I wouldn't have been able to discover these things about myself without your community. So I appreciate that. So while I don't have the most viewers in the world, and while I don't have a partner badge, which is basically like a verification badge, and while I'm not like on all these big streamers' radars, I have my own space on Twitch that works for me, and then it's just like a happy little space, and that's there for me whenever I need it. If I were to break my leg and I can't perform, right, then Twitch becomes the space that I can still make money, I can still create, I can still do things, rather than having to perform live, right? If the world shuts down again, I have Twitch. So it's a nice little space, and it's got a great community. So if you ever want to fall into a little Twitch hole, I'm sure you could find something that you like.
Yeah, I Googled it because I'd heard of it, but I'll be honest, I didn't really know. And I know it said that it was a live streaming platform that's predominantly for gaming, but not, like you said, other things as well. I've never personally gone on it, so I don't know. But
yeah, even if you were to wanted to do these interviews live, you could do a Twitch channel interviews. You would just need to work out the tech part of it. But a lot of people just do that, where they do interviews on Twitch. I've done some, and they're super fun. Yeah.
And people can like chat, I assume, and ask questions.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. They have the chat on the side, and you as the moderator would watch the chat, but then you would have moderators in there like getting rid of like spam and things. And it's a whole nother kind of funky world, but I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do. I get really excited to go online.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, I've done YouTube Live once, so I guess it's similar.
It's very similar. Very similar. A lot of people who leave Twitch go to YouTube.
Well, that's cool. No, I wasn't sure if that was kind of a big part of your income. So I know people do it, but it's nice to hear that you're earning enough from your live shows.
Yeah, I earn more than enough for my live shows. I work on weekends. So Monday to Friday, I'm basically a glorified housewife. I clean the house, I walk my dog, I work out, and I stream on Twitch. It's great. And then on the weekends, I travel to a different city, I work, I do my thing, and then I come home.
Well, that sounds like a nice life.
I mean, not to say that I manifested this, but before I went on Drag Race, I did say I could never be that person who spends their entire year touring. I want to be a person where on the weekends I work and during the week I'm home with my husband. And that's the life I have. I've been given that life. I've been blessed with this incredible career where I'm able to do that. So I'm happy.
Well, I'm glad you're happy. That's obviously what we want. And then one other question was, we kind of touched on this briefly earlier, was someone asked if you ever came back for an All-Star. So I guess it's two parts. Would you come back for an All-Stars? And if you did, if it was an All-Stars versus the world, which contestants would you want to compete against?
Oh God, which contestants? Oh, I've never.
And if you would
had
actually
somebody-
come back for an All-Stars, yes or no, kind of thing.
I would heavily consider it, but I don't know if it would be an immediate yes. Everybody around me says I should say yes, but something about payoff versus input for me is a big thing. It's like, yeah, I'm going to go back on, but how much is that going to help my career? You know, what will it change about where I am? And it's just like, it will or it will not, you know, how much money am I going to put into this and will it be worth it? Because I'm not someone who just can do things willy-nilly. Like I put in a lot of money into making myself look good. So it would be an expensive endeavor. So I'm not too sure, but I'm not saying no. I'm saying maybe. I'm saying let's see where I am in my life when they give me the call. If they were to even give me the call, I have a feeling the production in Canada hates me, so I don't think they would give me a call. But we'll see. But who would I want? I would want it to be Australia. I would love to do a versus Australia. I think that would just be wild. And who would I want to be there? Oh my God. Okay, I would want Hannah Conta. There's 9. It's 9, right? Okay, we'll just say 9. So I'm just gonna go off the top of my head. I would want Hannah Conda because I think she is just so fun. I would want now I'm gonna say this just because I think it would be good TV, but I would simply evaporate if they were to walk there in because I knew I would just be annihilated by this people. But I would want Tace. I think Tace would be great to walk in with. Who else? Who I want somebody from the American season. Candy. I would love to see Candy walk in. I'm a big fan of Candy Muse. Oh my God, there's so many people. There's so many drag races. Who am I a big fan of? It would be nice to see Rome there because she's Holland and she was first out. So that would be fun. Who was the really hot one in Holland? With the hairy chest.
Oh, Sedagine?
Yeah, Sedagine, just because she's hot. Who else? Cynthia. I think it would be fun to compete with Cynthia. I think it would be nice to have somebody like Cynthia there. And then let's just say one more person for fun. I tweeted this the other day and I would simply pass away if Carmen Farala and Envy Peru were to walk in, 2 winners that would just like I would be like, goodbye, I'm leaving. If they were to come in, I feel like that would be really cool. So let's say them. I've created a cast.
That's a great cast. Like, and also that's really very international because a lot of the people you mentioned aren't from the English speaking the season. So that's really
Marina from Philippines. She's really cool. Okay, I'm done.
So that's the cast. Let's manifest that.
Let's manifest it. Me going home again first. My keeping on brand.
And then one final question someone asked, which I thought was kind of an interesting question. Someone said, have anyone ever thought that you're related to Pandora Boxx?
All the time. All the time. And it's my fault. And I wish I could change my name. But when I created my drag persona and stuff, I didn't even think I would ever be doing drag professionally. I always thought it would just be me being hot. And then it got to the point where I was so deep into it that I was just like, I can't change this now. And then it was to the point where then I was like, but I'll never be on Drag Race and I'll be super famous. It's fine. Then I got on Drag Race and I was like, so I feel like I should have changed it when I got on Drag Race. But I think if I were to ever go back on an All-Stars, that's when I would change it. I think that's when I would just do Juice Boxx 1X. So that way it's just like, okay, 1X, we are not related. I only put 2 because I thought 3 was too porny and 1 was boring. That's why I did the 2. I didn't even think of Pandora Box at the time. I completely f***ed up. Everybody thinks we actually did a show together and she read my name and went, well, and apparently we're cousins, Juice Boxx. And I was like, I want to die. Like, it was just awful. So I feel like if I ever get on an All-Stars, if I were to go back, that's when I would be like, hi, just clearing the air. Me and Pandora aren't related. This is my last name, not the same last name. We're changing it. We're rebranding.
I can see where the double X is kind of cool, but like, yeah, I hadn't really thought about it, if I'm totally honest, because I thought, well, you're from Canada, she's American, probably, like, I'm assuming
Nope.
Probably not.
No, not related at all. Met once, and she's lovely, absolutely a peach, wonderful person, great performer. Wish her nothing but amazing and success, but we're not related, and it's completely my fault, and I am an idiot.
Well, I'm glad you cleared up that. So I'd love to just get onto my quick fire round of questions. So It's just 5 quick questions. So top of your head, the first thing that comes to your mind. And it's just sort of like 5 silly questions. Some are drag related, some are not, but just first thing that comes to your mind.
Cool.
Okay, so lipstick or lip gloss?
Lipstick.
Yes or no, pineapple on pizza?
No. But
favorite emoji?
The pleaser one. Smile with the watery eyes. It's my favorite.
So to drink, soda or juice?
Soda. I love pop. It's my weakness. I love it so much.
And can you summarize your experience on Drag Race in 1 word?
Panic. I should have just screamed. Yeah, I would say panic.
Panic and then Well, thank you so much. It's been so lovely to get to know you, and I'm sure my audience is like hear all of this really cool like backstage tea and hear more about you. So if people do want to, hear more about you, follow you, where can people find you?
Okay. They're not all the same because everyone picks up the name Juice Boxx. So I'm sorry, bear with me. So if you want to follow me on TikTok, it's Juice Boxx Tiki Talkie. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Juice Boxx Official. If you want to follow me on Twitter, which I do mostly posting, it's my favorite place to be, Juice Boxx Queen. If you want to, do I have anything else? If you want to follow me on Twitch, it's twitch.tv/juiceboxtwitch. And I think that's all my social media. God willing, no more. I made a Tumblr and a Hive, and I haven't touched them because I'm like, it's too much.
It's true. It can be too much. And do you have any upcoming projects or anything you sort of want to talk about? What can we expect from Juice Boxx?
I mean, there's 2 things that I have right now that I can talk about. Everything else is kind of like under wraps, but you can listen to me and Cynthia Kiss every single week with Semi-Qualified Queens Pod, where we talk about all things drag. We are, I think, going to be venturing into some different kind of cool things in the next coming years. So definitely follow us to follow up on that. And if you want to hear about me talk about video game things, I do have a podcast with Flannel Jax, who is another streamer on Twitch, and we just talk about no drag related. It's all just about video game reviews, and we just talk about games that you might have played, might not have played. And it's called It's Dangerous to Go Alone. It's another podcast. I know I'm a white guy with 2 podcasts. Leave me alone. But if you ever want to hear my opinions about video games, if you ever want to do that stuff, I don't know. That one's a little less popular because people are like, no drag. But I also have that one too, if you guys want. That one's more of a passion project. And I think just watch out for my next year. I've got lots of projects on the radar, just things I can't obviously announce yet. And hopefully I'll be in a city near you really soon. And if you want to book me, you just go to my website, just go to my Instagram, click that little booking number and give me an email.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I've really loved speaking to you, and I really do hope we see you on an All-Stars. Let's hope one day with that cast. That would be amazing. So let's manifest that.
I would simply evaporate. I would just be like, goodbye.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So I guess, we'll see what happens with Juice Boxx.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Bye.